Good morning and welcome to the ODPP Café. It's Friday, another day to empower ourselves and to learn matters on the criminal justice system and the law. Welcome to the ODPP Café. If it is your first time, feel free to comment on the comment section, to engage us on the comment section on Facebook Live. We are also on Twitter at ODPP_KE and on YouTube, where we welcome you to subscribe at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. My name is Anita Onuko. I'll be your host for today. We are available today. We are going to talk about leadership and integrity today. But of course, before that, we have to take a quick sneak into the courts like we normally do. And our disclaimer is that this is not exhaustive, just a few cases that we think we should highlight. And of course, I know you've been keeping abreast of what has been happening in the courts on social and on traditional media. So we cannot mention everything, just a few of those things that have been happening. So to begin with the courts, I know we can't start this without talking about the Kianjokoma brothers, the murder trial. 6 police officers linked to the murder of the 2 brothers in Kianjokoma in Embu County have been remanded in police custody for 14 days to allow IPOA to conclude their investigations. Remember this story, the murders, they caused quite an uproar on social and the whole country as well, because it was quite a sad thing seeing how the mother broke down. It's not easy for a parent to bury a child, let alone 2. So you can imagine what she's going through right now. So the 6 police officers, Benson Mputhia, Consolata Karaoke, Nicholas Sang, Martin, and let me get the names right. Just give me a sec. Give me a second. My video is running fast. So the 6 are Benson Mputhia, Consolata Karaoke, Nicholas Sang, Martin Samali Wanyama, Lillian Cherono, and James Waniki. You saw them in court all covered, and people were complaining as to why they are covered like that. Yet people wanted to know who. First of all, it was about their names, then it became about their faces. But the most important thing is that the case is on, investigations are ongoing, and they're remanded in custody. So the prosecution led by Jacinta Nyamosi made the application to remand the officers for 14 days in the interest of criminal justice and public interest, and also to ensure that investigations are not compromised. The suspects will be arraigned in court for plea taking on 31st August 2021. Of course, we'll follow closely as to how this takes off and how it ends. The other case we are looking at is quite sad for me as a parent as well. A woman was charged with defilement in Nairobi. The woman defiled her employer's son. The prosecution submitted that on diverse dates between January and July last year in an apartment in Kileleshwa, she defiled a 12-year-old boy that was left in her care. This was quite unfortunate. She was charged with another count of committing an indecent act with a minor and a 3rd count of compelling the boy's 5-year-old sister to engage in sexual activity with her brother. She denied all counts before Magistrate Jane Kamau. This was quite unfortunate. And in her plea, she asked the court to be lenient to her because she has a 3-month-old baby to take care of. Can you imagine the irony? But she was left in charge of someone's children, and just sad. The other case again is about police officers. 2 officers accused of killing a man in Mathare, Nairobi, while they were enforcing curfew last year, will remain in custody as they wait to undergo a mental assessment on Tuesday next week. Remember, one of those things we talked about here, talking about murder, was that mental assessment is a must. So the court ordered that Inspector Daniel Musau and Corporal Robert Kibororo be taken for mental assessment before pleading for murder charges. It's quite bizarre why they use so much force to enforce curfew. This whole curfew rules. It's quite sad that people are dying because of this. The 2 are alleged to have caused the death of Vitalis Owino, alias Madaraka, in the Mradi area in Mathare when they bludgeoned him to death while enforcing the curfew in May last year. So COVID is causing havoc even on the streets and with the law enforcement officers. But the case is ongoing. We'll see how that goes. So remember the case about the National Land Commission, the lady who was murdered and who was found murdered in Ngong. So at 123.3 million fraud case involving the National Land Commission was adjourned to November after the magistrate handling the case was transferred. Again, this has come up in many of the discussions we have as to why cases are delayed. So you can see why sometimes cases are delayed. This is one of the reasons. So the magistrate was transferred. Milimani Chief Magistrate Francis Andai directed that since the case is still ongoing with 30 witnesses remaining, it will be proper if the incoming court makes directions on how the case will proceed. So this case is linked to a 122.3 million fraud case involving Ayub Savula, the Lugari MP, and former Ministry of Information PS Sami Itemere, and 28 others who are charged with stealing 122.3 million from the government advertising agency. So Jennifer was a witness in this case and she was found murdered. So that is how these two are linked. But you can definitely just continue reading this case in the papers and see how they are linked, but it's quite sad how it ended. So the case will be mentioned on November 1st when the new court gives new directions. I think that's it from the courts. Like I say, it's just normally a touch, just a glance of what has been happening. Never exhaustive. We can definitely, you can follow up on other cases as they are in the courts on social media and on traditional media. So we get right onto our show, and today we're on time, thank God. We want to discuss leadership and integrity, and we are talking about this because corruption has been sort of the curse of our generation. And again, we're now on campaign mode. I know we've been on campaign mode since the last campaign, but now the drums are sounding louder. And it's time to talk about our expectation of who we are going to elect, and of course, what we are doing about corruption currently. I have experts as usual in the show, and at least today I'm lucky to have a lady and a gentleman. You have met Terry, so I am going to just ask them to introduce themselves, and of course, wageni kwanza, in as much as we do ladies first. But Karibu Philip, please introduce yourself and let us know who you are and what you do.
All right, thank you very much, Anita. My name is Philip Kagushia. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. We're in the same industry with Terry, although as you can tell from this, the mileage on this car, I work for EACC, that is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. I was an asset recovery lawyer, but currently I'm in charge of the Corporate Affairs and Public Communications department, and I'm really happy to be here because these are topics which are close to my heart, especially the issue of leadership and integrity. And before I hand over to Terry to do the intro, I would just like perhaps to clarify for the people who are watching or listening in. You know, we work very closely with the DPP because we are part of the same criminal justice chain. But some people don't know what EACC does and at what point they hand over to DPP.
And we'll get to that.
And we'll get to that. So at some point when she has done her introduction, we would like to come back.
Yes, definitely, you can do that. Terry, take two.
Yes, good morning, Anita, and good morning to our viewers. My name is Terry Kahoro. I'm in the Anti-Corruption Department at ODPP and also the Proceeds of Crime Recovery Unit. Yes. And I am happy to have Mr. Kagushia here. I am his student, I must say. Okay. Yes, because we have worked closely together with him and also done some joint trainings. So I think today's topic, you have the part of the agencies that can really discuss this critical topic.
Yes. Karibu sana Terry. It's not the first time for Terry to be on the show, it's the second time. And we're always glad to have her here. So I don't know whether we start with the mandate of the EACC or we start with definition, but maybe because we're talking about chapter 6 of the Constitution, leadership and integrity, we can start by defining what leadership is and what it entails in the spirit of our Constitution. What was envisioned in chapter 6? Yeah, so maybe Philip.
Yeah, so you know, when Kenyans passed the Constitution in 2010, they had certain expectations about the caliber of leadership that they should get. Yeah. And that's why the entire chapter 6 of the Constitution is dedicated to leadership and integrity. And the reason I was connecting that with the mandate is because the mandate that people know is a law enforcement mandate. Yes. So EACC is known for combating and preventing corruption. And how it does that is law enforcement. But apart from law enforcement, there's another side where we do education, training, public awareness, and then we enforce ethics. And if you look at even the way the Constitution is set up, Chapter 6 has only, I think, seven articles from 73 to 80. So they're not very many. I think those are 8 articles. If you go to Article 79, there shall be an independent ethics and anti-corruption commission.
And this is who you are now.
And that's why I'd like to mention that because before it was just Kenya Anti-Corruption. But what the people of Kenya have said, there's an additional mandate of ethics that has come to ngumu sana. And it's ngumu because, as we were discussing earlier, can you legislate people's conduct? And now back to what chapter 6 says, it's really about the things we expect or we should expect from our leaders. And it includes things like selection on the basis of merit, making decisions with impartiality, without favoritism, and so on and so forth. The other provisions about people having citizenship, the other provisions about maintaining accounts outside the country. And if you think about all those things deeply, you will understand why the Constitution has to set rules about how to deal with those. Yeah.
And in terms of even priority of the 18 chapters, it falls number 6, meaning it's very important.
It's high in priority.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So Terry, what is your understanding of integrity?
Integrity, Anita, goes hand in hand with leadership. That's why they are put together. Where in the public sector, the people entrusted with taking care of the population are expected to lead by example, to lead in a way that is transparent, to lead in a way that is open, a way that enhances democracy, a way that ensures that it protects the resources of the public, and many other things as enumerated in chapter 6. So integrity is twofold. It is personal. There has to be personal integrity. You as a person, what are the values that you stand for? What are the expectations that people should have on you as a person? You should be able to be defined as so and so. It is known that you can protect public funds. Now talking from a point of view of the criminal justice system, you must be a person who is able to do selections in a way that is transparent, in a way that is fair, in a way that it is democratic. So, and the second fold of integrity is now what the law expects of you as a leader. What the law provides, what should you do? You must ensure equality, equity, and all those other things. Yes.
Was the bar set too high? Can we have such people in this country? What are the words in this country? Was the bar set too high, Philip?
You know, I'm a huge advocate for the bar being set high. Generally speaking, anything, even at home with your kids, when you tell them that tunataka apate 400 out of 500, you're setting the bar high. So there's nothing wrong with setting the bar high.
Yeah.
What is interesting, and I like this issue. I don't know if you recall, Terry, that about 7-8 years ago, somebody went to court and they raised the same issue. They're saying, because how the Constitution is set up, you have Article 79 that sets up EACC. Then Article 80 says, Parliament shall enact legislation for the effective administration of this chapter. That legislation is the Leadership and Integrity Act. That is what is supposed to be governing our leaders. But we have a huge problem because as soon as the law came out, we were wondering, hang on, did this meet the threshold? And that's why you're asking about the bar. So maybe under the Constitution, the bar is really high. But when the legislation was passed, maybe it's not meeting our threshold. And they went to court, and I think they were trying to have the Leadership and Integrity Act declared unconstitutional. But the court said, you see, you can't just, there's a presumption of constitutionality. Just for the sake that it has not met your expectations. So we have like a small gap here, and that's where the issue of the bar is relevant to this topic. And just before maybe I hand over to Terry, there's something else I'd like to say. The people who you are, ni wakina nani? Okay, so of course, are they going to be, Katiba imeset standard hapa, they have a law, are they really going to make a law that's going to bring it up here? So we have a slight challenge.
So then now, the criminal justice system, because you find people don't understand, it's one of those things that has become quite difficult to understand about who does what in all these institutions. So maybe this is the point, Philip, tell us, what is your mandate as EACC? Yes.
All right, as I mentioned earlier, the mandate of EACC is to combat and prevent corruption. There's some academic debate about whether you prevent first, then combat, or combat first.
Oh my God, what did you do first?
The way we look at it is this: if Kenya were a patient, would the condition be critical or not critical? It's critical.
Critical.
So what you do is you combat first. Alafu akistabilize, You start preventing. It's like a person who's sick. You give them treatment first, and then you start telling them, wacha kukula nyama, unajua punguza pombe and stuff like that. So we start with the combating and then prevention. And the mechanisms we use, and the ones which are more familiar to most Kenyans, is law enforcement, because we investigate.
Yes.
We analyze the records that we have. We make recommendations to the DPP, and if the DPP concurs, the DPP now charges. Okay, and I'm very happy that we are here with Terry, because as part of the justice chain, I think we are in agreement over 90% of the time. So that's great. That's what people know. But the other side of it, which people don't know, is education, training, public awareness. What we are doing here today, Anita, is public awareness. We're helping the people who are listening in or watching to understand. But there's another aspect, which is the promotion of ethics. And that one is one which is a bit complicated, because, as I mentioned, the Leadership and Integrity Act maybe does not give us enough tools to effectively administer Chapter 6 of the Constitution. Yeah.
But when you talk about ethics, how different is it from what NCIC does?
This is the cohesion.
Yes, national cohesion.
That's different. I think, and if you've seen is it the chairman of the SEO? Because I think he was on television yesterday.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he was on TV the other day, and I think what they're trying to do is to prevent people getting carried away by the upcoming elections and incitement and things like that. So if I remember correctly, the whole title is National Cohesion and Integration. So that's different.
So what is ethics then?
So I don't want to get too philosophical. The English one.
Yes.
So you have integrity. Okay. The simplest way of understanding integrity, and this is how we talk to people when you go outside, is it is what you would do. It's doing the right thing at all times. And they say doing what is right even if no one is looking. But ethics is now the codification of integrity. And they start telling you ethics involves financial probity, transparency, honesty, and all those things. So the codification of integrity is what is captured in ethics. Yes.
Okay. All right. So Terry, they investigate, then they bring the file to you.
Yes.
That is how the system works. So now what happens then?
As he has said, it is a chain. So once they have investigated, it comes to us. Our mandate being under Article 157, which is to initiate criminal prosecutions. Once in the file, if you find that there is sufficient evidence, and of course there are parameters that are well guided, you must have sufficient evidence. It must be the public interest. The evidence must be admissible. So once all those thresholds have been met, then the decision to charge is made. So the decision to charge can be to charge if those thresholds are met. If not, it can be a decision not to charge, either because the evidence is not sufficient, or maybe it is not in the public interest, or the evidence is not admissible. Or you could have a not to charge where you don't find those thresholds, or sometimes that evidence is still out there. So ODPP liaises with EACC. We look at what evidence can be brought in or is still out there and is needed. Once it is sufficient, the decision is made, charges are prepared, the same are filed in court, and that's when the criminal prosecution commences. And still in court, we work very closely with EACC, because in court you still need your investigator and the prosecutor. And I must say that the best cases won or even lost together are those where we are able to work very closely together, so that the result is owned by all of us. And also sometimes we have other agencies involved. Yes.
I will take you straight to some comments somebody made on Facebook. And just for clarity again, when we put up our leadership and integrity topic this week, the first comment we got was the ODPP has no mandate for this chapter 6. What did you tell that such a person, and me as well, because you're teaching me? Why would someone think you have no mandate?
We do have a mandate. The mandate it could be different agencies have different mandates.
Yes.
Now, Chapter 6 talks about the Anti-Corruption Commission. The Anti-Corruption Commission, once they have their results, because when you go to the Leadership and Integrity Act, you will find that when it comes to the actions that can be taken, some are administrative, and then others are recommending criminal proceedings. So that is where our mandate kicks in, so that the Anti-Corruption Commission can actually find that this is a case that requires prosecution.
Yes.
So we come in. Secondly, Anita, we are the agency that enforces all these acts in terms of prosecution. May it be starting with the Constitution, the Leadership and Integrity Act, the Elections Act, the Elections Offences Act, and all those acts that support Chapter 6. Therefore, we have, in fact, a big mandate in terms of prosecution. The other aspect of our mandate is also on training, because we must train our staff and other agencies, and also in a multi-agency setting to enhance and enforce and implement these acts that are premised on Chapter 6.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right, interesting. Now we know. I was also questioning with him. Like when he put up, I'm like, eh, Enyere, what is the mandate here?
No, maybe if you,
Yes.
with your permission, I
Yes.
can jump in.
Yeah.
The simpler way to look at it is this. You know, the DPP prosecutes all crime
Yes.
across the country. That's a mandate under Article 157, right? So supposing the crime is committed by a leader, and the EACC has investigated and is bringing those crimes,
Yeah.
don't you think that the decision, and by the way, I have to upload the DPP because they even have, I think, guidelines on decision to charge.
Yeah.
So that the decision to charge is not on a whim. It's not that the DPP has woken up in a bad mood and he has said, Anita, unaenda jela leo. No, ama unaenda kotini. So imagine EACC has done an investigation. The person who is affected is a leader, maybe a governor, an MP, senator, MCA, or even a head of a parastatal, because that is a position of public trust that somebody has to demonstrate ethical conduct. So once we've made recommendations, the moment he is charged by the DPP, are co-affected. So they clearly have a mandate.
They have a mandate.
Yes.
Now we know. So there's something else about EACC and the Anti-Corruption and Economics Act. How did these two relate?
Okay, so you get me very excited certainly about this. So in 2003, the Anti-Corruption Economic Crimes Act is one that established the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission. So we had KACC, and I think even before that, there was even a CASA, a Kenya Anti-Corruption Authority.
Yes.
So if you go back to the history, yes, and we are improving, and somewhere in between we got a little bit of a boost because we became signatory to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption in 2003, and that convention says all member states, including Kenya, should have an agency mandated to fight with corruption, to fight corruption. The only thing that happened is after 2010, tukaongezewa mandate. Now, not just anti-corruption issues, but also ethics. That's why we call ethics and anti-corruption commission. Yeah.
All right, interesting. There's so many acts and laws and all those things. Looks like we are well covered, but we are covered by the law and institutions, but there's still a gap that we still need to maybe fill as a country. So Terry, you mentioned about the decision to charge, and you mentioned about public interest. I'm wondering, just from a layman's perspective, again, I'm not a lawyer, but at all corruption cases of public interest, especially corruption within government, are they all not classified? As in, hata before usikie unasema public interest tick.
Yes.
What do you look for?
Public interest is a term actually that is easily, you can misinterpret it. It is not public interest the way it sounds, like
It's
the
not
public
trendy.
is interested. It is it could be, in fact, we have guidelines on what is public interest. Of course, it is in the public interest that you secure public funds. So it is admirable to charge such offenses. But then in some instances, it could be better to maybe apply alternatives to prosecution. So you choose another alternative that is better, more efficient, more effective, more productive. An example would be a person who is not, let's say, notorious in terms of what happened, is ready to admit, is even ready to so that you have like plea bargain coming in. Or at the very beginning, this person is ready to return everything that they took. So you will have meted justice, but maybe not by way of a prosecution. So it is in the interest of the public that you have this matter expeditiously disposed of. The coffers money back. And I'll give an example of Kagushia, the Nairobi University land matter.
Yes.
It was indeed in the public interest to have the land returned. And also you look also at other factor, the age of that person, the health of that person. And so there are many, the public interest encompasses a lot, but then it also comes with a lot of responsibility. It has to be a very transparent process as to why it is in the public interest not to prosecute. And look also at our justice system. It is clogged up. So is it in the interest that you want to put each and every case in the system and have people, you don't have justice for years and years? I mean, or would you rather there are those that must go through the criminal process. But if you're able to divert, of course, encompassing those transparency policies and all, then you have a better justice system. In fact, Anita, you'll find in other countries, only 10% of all cases go to court. And the rest, yes, the rest are disposed of in alternative methods. But for the longest time, and the traditional way, and how we have always seen justice to be, is to take someone to court. But I think with time, we are finding it is not sometimes the most efficient. It really does matter when you are able to find alternatives, but within the confines of the law.
That's how we are cultured, I think. You have to go to the court to tuone kitu inafanyika. But even that said, Philip, with all this synergy, with all these institutions and laws, we still lose for those that go to court. What happens? And then, before you even tell me, you will see people throwing daggers at ESCC, throwing daggers at these two institutions.
Yeah, nobody likes us.
ODPP and ESCC. So what gives? I mean, do you have control? I mean, after your mandate, you've investigated, you've prosecuted, then what?
Well, I'm not sure this thing about losing cases is based on data. You know why? From our end, we have a conviction rate of 63%. And I think that's not far from what the DPP is also recording, although for the DPP, it's all crime.
Yes.
Okay, but for corruption matters, I think we have a conviction rate of 63. 63% is not terrible. It's not bad. It's not poor. Okay, but it can be better. And one of the ways it can be better is what Terry is talking about. Because we are socialized in a way where we expect everything to go through the court, we have to start re-engineering the system. We have to start educating the people, so that even people, when the public hears something, because this is still public interest, when they hear something, they don't react negatively to it. They're like, okay, this is the new way of doing things. The reason the conviction rates are higher in developed countries is because, one, the quality of investigations is high. The resources are high. By the time the suspect is confronted, he's like, okay, I will take 1 year because I know if I go to court, I'll get 10 years. Also, somebody will say, look, I made a mistake. I'm willing to make amends. I can even refund the money. And I'm glad that Terry reminded me of that case when I was still in the legal department. So when I filed the matter, we thought we were going to fight with somebody until the death. Turns out it was an old man. He had served this country. He was a soldier. He was ailing. Clearly he had been misled. But akona title ya shamba belonging to the University of Nairobi, and that was valued at 2 billion shillings. So when people are wondering what we are doing as a criminal justice partners, those are some of the things we're doing. We came together, we listened to the guy. He said he wants to return the property, no other issues, and we let it go. Now, public interest. Kenyans are the ones who will ask you, wanasemangaje, mwizi wa kuku anafungwa 5 years na mfisadi anapigwa fine. That is the meaning of public interest, because in the same tone they will say umefunga mtu and all this person did was sign a voucher. Hata si yeye alikula pesa, alifanya makosa kusign voucher, but hata si yeye alikula pesa nini. So why are you putting that one in? That money is only 1 million, lakini tunajua kuna watu wa billions. You get? That is what public interest is, and I'm happy that Terry has brought it out so